If you're a manager who actively avoids giving tough feedback because you don't want to ruin a relationship or drain your energy, I need you to hear this. Avoiding conflict doesn't make you an empathetic leader, it makes you a bottleneck. When you tolerate mediocre work to avoid an uncomfortable 10-minute conversation, you are sending a massive red flag to senior leadership, who are the decision makers and who are likely to make or break your career into senior leadership role. You are signaling that you cannot handle emotional weight of an executive role. But you're not alone in this. A massive Harris poll survey found that 69% of the managers are actively uncomfortable communicating with their employees, and 37% are highly uncomfortable giving direct corrective feedback. We hold on to it. We let it build up. We wait for the annual review when you don't really have a choice but to give that feedback because you've given a rating and you need to justify that rating. But here is the irony. Research published by Harvard Business Review by Zenger and Folkman found that 57% of the employees actually prefer corrective feedback over praise. They want to know how to get better. Your silence is stunning their career and it is ruining your executive presence. In fact, if you think about it for yourself, you would prefer to get that feedback too. Today, I'm going to give you 3 psychological shifts you need to give tough feedback effortlessly, emotionlessly, and without draining your social battery. And I'm going to show you how 3 professionals use these exact frameworks to stop managing conflict and start using it to secure their promotions. So let's start with shift number 1. You have to move from attack to alignment. The reason giving feedback drains your battery is because it feels personal. In behavioral science, this is called affective conflict. Conflict based on personality. When you tell someone you are disorganized or you keep missing deadlines, you trigger a fight or flight response in their brain. They stop listening and start defending. Executives or good leaders don't do this. They use cognitive conflict based on the task. You must completely separate the person from the process. And that's what the difference is. So I'll give you an example. I worked with Rambo. I made up the name to preserve privacy. He is an engineering manager. He had a brilliant but chaotic developer who was constantly delivering code late. Rambo dreaded confronting him. So I helped him change a few things on how he could provide this feedback more effectively. Instead of attacking the developer's time management, Rambo sat down and said this: the current pacing of this sprint is putting our Q3 product launch at risk. How do we close the gap between your current output and the launch target? You see what happened there? Rambo removed the emotion. He stopped critiquing the person and started aligning on the business outcome. It becomes a shared puzzle to solve. The developer didn't get defensive. He actually suggested a workflow change that fixed the bottleneck. To be an executive, you don't fight the person, you fight the problem together. Make it our problem instead of your problem, and the whole perspective changes for them. Now let's move on to shift number 2, the 3-sentence micro correction. Right? Quiet leaders hate feedback because they imagine a grueling 45-minute emotional showdown in a conference room or a meeting room. Feedback shouldn't be an event, it should be a reflex. Great leaders, successful leaders, use a framework called SBI model. This is a model that's been used for a long time. SBI stands for situation, B for behavior, and I for impact. I gave this exact framework to Misha, a marketing manager. She had a direct report who constantly interrupted other team members during meetings. Instead of scheduling a heavy formal one-on-one that would drain Misha's energy for the rest of the day, she pulled this person aside for exactly about 60 seconds. And this has to be immediate, right after the meeting. Right? She used the 3 sentences. Sentence 1 is about situation. It goes something like this: during the client sync up meeting this morning, that was the situation. And then sentence 2 is about the behavior. You spoke over Priya twice while she was presenting the data. That's the behavior. And then sentence 3, the business impact. When that happens, it makes our team look misaligned to the client and we lose their trust. That was just the impact. Then Misha asked the neutral question: how can we ensure everyone gets the floor next time? And she handed over the microphone to this person, and that's it. 3 sentences, pure data, no emotional weight. The behavior stopped immediately, and Misha protected her time for deep strategic work. I'm sure you will all agree and resonate with that this method is much better than that eventful emotional argument that's likely to happen otherwise, right? So it's all about 3 simple sentences. SBI model, remember that and take down notes. And then the shift number 3, and this one is one of the most requested amongst my clients, the upward pushback. A lot of you are really good at knowing when to push back from your team, but what happens when it is your boss? The ultimate test of your executive presence isn't about how you manage down, it is about how you lead up. Right? It is about how you lead up. And I'm careful using the word lead instead of managing up. I would rather that you lead up. Even your manager needs someone to lead from within the team. Quiet professionals, and when I say quiet professionals, I mean introverts, often say yes to impossible deadlines because they want to avoid the friction with the leadership. But good leaders despise the yes men. I'm talking about good leaders who you report to, right? They respect leaders who can push back but do that strategically. Harvard Business Review calls this strategic alignment. When you push back, it can never sound like a complaint. It must sound like a resource management. Take my client, another example that I'm going to give. Let's call this person James for privacy's sake. His senior director dropped a massive new initiative on his desk on a Thursday, demanding it to be done by Monday. James's default was to work all weekend and resent his boss while doing it. Instead, I suggested that he use the upward pushback method I prepared for him. So he replied to his manager on an email when that request came in. It goes something like this: I completely understand the priority of this new initiative. To deliver this by Monday at the quality you expect and I expect from myself, I will need to pause the current software migration until Wednesday. Do I have your alignment on that strategic trade-off? James didn't say no, if you notice, right? He forced his director to make an executive decision about the resourcing. The director paused the new initiative. By pushing back smoothly, James actually earned a seat at the strategic planning table because he proved he thought like a business owner and not just as an employee. Now, that is something really important about this whole concept, right? Now, if you think about Rambo, Misha, and James, all the made up names, didn't just learn how to survive uncomfortable conversations. They used conflict to prove their executive maturity, and it is exactly why they got promoted. Knowing the psychology behind these frameworks is one thing, but having the reflex to execute them live in a tense boardroom or a meeting room when your heart is beating fast, that is what separates the people who stay in the middle management from the people who become the directors, VPs, CEOs, and CFOs. If you are tired of biting your tongue, absorbing your team's stress, and watching louder colleagues get promoted over you, it is time to upgrade your operating system. That is why I created the 60-day leadership challenge. I call it the Leader Authority. This is a rigorous step-by-step sprint designed strictly for mid-level professionals. We don't just talk about theory. I give you the exact script to manage up or lead up, push back, and build an undeniable executive brand without changing your true nature. Click the link in the description below to secure your spot in the challenge. Stop letting uncomfortable conversations stall your career. Let's get to work. Until next time, take care.